Hello and welcome, everyone. Just give us one moment here while we get our cameras started for you. Okay, hi everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of Cooking Connected. My name is Sajwa. And here today I'm with two of our lovely volunteers. We've got Margie and we've got Becky here. So if this is your first time with us, welcome. If it's your returning time, welcome back. Cooking Matters Minnesota is a program that's in collaboration with the University of Minnesota Extension, and a normal Cooking Matters class is we meet once a week for 2 hours, and we'll feature a volunteer chef and a nutrition educator, and they usually work together and we'll work through a recipe, learn a lot of really cool kitchen tips, cooking tips, and nutrition to go along with that recipe. So we love doing those classes, and doing Cooking Connected is an opportunity for us to continue this work, but virtually. So before we move forward with today's episode, I do want to go ahead and put out our survey. We really appreciate all the survey feedback we've been getting. We appreciate all the comments and likes that you guys give us. That helps us continue this work and to continue to improve as we go. And today's survey program code for this episode of Cooking Connected is going to be E100627. And again, that's the program code for today's episode of Cooking Connected. So if you like what you see after this video, take a moment and do that survey for us. It really helps us move forward with this work. Today's recipe is going to be the mini pizza recipe. So this is a really great option if you have youth, young kids, anyone, adults. I like mini pizzas. So really great recipe for that if you want to take advantage of that opportunity. And we're going to go ahead, and I will be sure to put the survey link and code in the chat box, and it's also in the description box of this video. And I'll also put the recipe in the chat box so that you guys can follow along with us. With that, I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic on to our Chef Margie, and we're going to get started with some of the things that you guys should be doing in the kitchen whenever you start a recipe.
All right, thank you. I'm so happy to be back with you today. Excited to make these mini pizzas. I made these, my grandkids were visiting and we made these together, and they're so awesome because you can really customize them to what each member of your family likes. And so we just kind of got our ingredients out, and then we just made our own little mini pizzas. So today I'm going to take you through just kind of a generic option, but you can change it up as much as you want. So first things first, let's wash our hands. All right, I'm going to go over to my sink and I'm going to give my hands a good scrubbing. Use good soap. I'll probably sing the alphabet, not loud because I don't want you to log off. So let me just do that.
Yeah, so like Chef Margie mentioned, you want to make sure you're washing your hands, getting in between those fingers, around the wrist, underneath your fingernails, all of those spots where germs like to hide. Like she mentioned, you can sing the happy birthday song twice, or you can sing your alphabet one time to get you through that 20 seconds. So that's a really great practice to get into whenever you're in the kitchen.
I'm back with clean hands. All right. So on my chef view, or my, the chef view over here, you can see that I have my ingredients laid out. And I went ahead and I did chop the peppers ahead of time. I'm gonna chop up the mushrooms in a bit, and I'll be chopping the tomato and showing you how I core and chop the tomato. Last week, I think I mentioned that I do like to add a few extra spices, that sometimes herbs and spices that are not included in the recipe. And I do that for flavor, but I also know that herbs such as oregano and thyme, they are a powerful antioxidant. So not only do they taste good, but they're really good for us. So I've added some extra herbs and encourage you to do that with any herbs and spices that you like. So the first thing our recipe says is to preheat our oven to 450. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay. And then we need to cut our peppers up into thin slices. And I cut mine into thin slices and then I chop them. Now the recipe calls for red or green pepper, and I used a combination of red, orange, and yellow pepper. I love the way the colors all look together. And I also know that from a nutrition standpoint, the more color you put on your plate, the more nutrients you're putting in your body. And peppers are an awesome source of vitamin C, and they are just nutrient rich. So I had all three kinds, and so I just did a little mixture of those. So I cut my peppers up, I diced them, and they're not real small diced. I like them a little bit bigger for the pizza, but if you want yours to be bigger, you go ahead and do that. And Becky, feel free to jump in whenever you have anything you want to add to this. So then
I do have one question here. Just wondering what other veggies, are there other veggies you could add to this?
Oh, you are talking my language. Yes.
Great question.
Yes. So when I made these today with my granddaughter, she's 7, I said, okay, let's add some extra vegetables. And so I suggested zucchini, and I got a wrinkled up nose. And I suggested spinach. And so I sauteed a little bit of spinach in there. And then she said, how about carrots? And I said, well, carrots aren't going to cook as evenly as the peppers are unless we grate them. So we grated up a carrot and we sauteed that in as well. So I don't think that, this is my personal opinion, that you can go wrong with adding vegetables. Spinach would be a great add-in, kale, broccoli, just kind of making sure that you're kind of looking at your cooking times too. So it's an excellent question, and I'm all about adding those vegetables.
Yeah. And that was a really great, I love that you shared that story there. That's just like the perfect example of a way to get youth involved in the kitchen, and not just involved, but thinking about different ways that they can be incorporating more vegetables into their diet. Now, this is a little bit of a controversy, but fruit, perhaps. I mean, we've done the fruit pizza before as more of a dessert, but I know some people like pineapple.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that would be good. Add some sauerkraut. Yes. Yeah. And you're absolutely right about involving children. My granddaughter is 7, and she did this entire recipe with me. She was able to read it. We went step by step through it. And then, when she made her own pizza and she helped with those vegetables, both she and her brother, who helped moderately, they were pretty excited about making their own pizza. So it's a fun one to do with kids. So, all right. So back to our recipe. So we have the peppers are cut up, and then the mushrooms we're going to slice. They've already come from the store sliced, but I'm going to slice them a little bit smaller, just so that they cook up a little bit evenly. So I'm just going to put some here on my cutting board, and I'm just going to really loosely slice them.
Do you put your mushrooms on raw, or do you cook your mushrooms before you put them on, or is there a preference there?
That's a great question, Becky. We're going to be sauteing the mushrooms and the peppers together. So we won't be putting them on raw. They will be sauteed, and they will, so they'll be cooked. Excellent question.
Great question. And, with these sliced mushrooms that come from the grocery store, just to know, guys, whenever you're getting any kind of veg or fruit or any produce from the grocery store, take a moment to rinse those vegetables and fruits. We know with our episodes of Cooking Connected, we're on a little bit of a time constraint. So our lovely chef today has already done that as part of her mise en place. Now, I know you guys must know what mise en place means by now, but in Cooking Matters, we like to say having your mess in place, or basically just kind of setting everything out you need for your recipe in advance. And you can see in the chef view, she's done a great job of that. But part of that mise en place is rinsing those veggies, perhaps setting out any utensils you need, wiping down the tops of cans that you're going to be using later. So keep that in mind as you're working through this recipe.
It makes it so much easier. And again, especially when you are cooking with children, to have it all laid out so that you don't give them any opportunity to lose interest. That's really powerful.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We do have a viewer question here.
Yes.
Wondering if you can use canned mushrooms in this recipe.
I would imagine that you certainly could use canned mushrooms. You're not going to have to saute them as long, but canned mushrooms would work just fine. Yes. All right, so now I'm going to cut my tomato. Oh, I can show you my view here. So when I cut my tomato, I'm going to start by taking the core out. And you'll see that our recipe calls for a large tomato, and we're using a Roma tomato here, and Roma tomatoes are so great when you're doing things like when you're cooking with them, or if you're making any kind of marinara or any sauces, because as you see, they're not quite as fleshy as some of the larger tomatoes are. And so they're not going to get as juicy and as watery. So I like to turn it over so that it doesn't roll. And then I'm just going to just make some slices down each side.
You guys, I love how Margie is taking her time as she's slicing. She's being careful to move her fingers back with each slice that she's making. And you know, she kind of mentioned this already, but the size really depends on what you're comfortable with biting. So if you like a larger tomato chunk, you're welcome to make bigger, thicker pieces. If you want a smaller option, you can always just cut it a little bit smaller. We did have one viewer who mentioned for a veg that could go well on here, artichoke.
Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. That would just be perfect.
Yep.
Yeah, always artichokes. Yes. All right. So then we have cut up our vegetables. And the next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to set those aside. And I'm going to rinse off my serrated knife because I want to use my serrated knife for cutting my English muffins in half. They're already pre-cut, but you just want to make sure they're cut all the way, and the serrated knife works the best. So I'm going to come over here and rinse off. Dry it off. So I love these English muffins. These are whole wheat English muffins, and they are just nice and thick and make a great pizza crust. So as I mentioned, they are already pre-sliced, but sometimes you just need to go around with your serrated knife very carefully and just open them up as such.
Yeah.
So I'll do that.
Now, I don't know if you guys remember from when we did this recipe before, the Works pizza. It's kind of similar, but I know that we did that recipe and we actually made our crust from scratch using that whole wheat flour. We had some yeast. I think we had a little bit of regular all-purpose flour, but anyway, we created our own crust. This is just a really quick and easy way to go about it if you didn't have time to perhaps create your crust, or, you know, again, having those small serving sizes is really going to make it convenient if you wanted to have something for a lunch or a snack for youth. All of those make great options, and you're still getting those whole grains, okay? Being mindful of choosing a whole wheat option was a great choice with this recipe.
Absolutely. All right, so I put them onto my baking pan, and I'm just going to put those into the oven for about 10 minutes. And this helps just kind of crisp it up so that when the sauce goes on, it doesn't soak in and get all soggy. So I'm going to put that into the oven for about 10 minutes.
All right. Good thing you reminded us to preheat our ovens, huh?
Yes, which is a step I often forget. So.
Me too.
Good thing that we got that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so next thing that we're going to do is we're going to use a skillet. And I'm just going to use my skillet here. And I am going to use, the recipe calls for canola oil, but I'm going to use olive oil today, but you can use either one. I just have a preference for olive oil. And it calls for a tablespoon of olive oil. So put that in there. And then I'm going to come over here and light that on the stove. And as the olive oil heats up, I'm going to go back to my recipe and check. And what I'll do is I'm going to add my peppers and I'll saute them nicely. The peppers take a little bit longer than the mushrooms do. So I'll saute the peppers first. This recipe doesn't call for onions, but you could certainly add onions. If you want. I chose not to when I made this with my grandchildren because they just weren't real fans of the onions. So, but what you can do is if you want to just have a little bit of the onion flavor, you could use a little bit of onion powder in there too. So my oil is warming up and I'm going to add my peppers in. And mix that around.
Another quick viewer question. Can you use other like breads like bagels or pita if you have those on hand instead of English muffins?
Absolutely. Bagels would be fantastic. Pita would be good. Naan, flatbread,
Mhm.
any of those things would be great. Yes. And you know, they now have bagel thins, so the bagel isn't as thick. And so that would be a great addition.
Another thing you can do is if you have perhaps a slice of whole wheat, whole grain bread, you can always use a rolling pin and kind of flatten it out and get yourself kind of a flatbread feel in that way. And I've done that and that works really well to get you that kind of feel with this pizza.
Yes. All right, you can hear my peppers cooking. I know you probably can't see them until I move them over there. While they're doing that, I'm just going to sprinkle them just a little bit with some oregano.
Mhm.
And a little bit of thyme.
Yep.
This gives it a nice flavor, not overpowering. We'll be putting some of those spices into our sauce. So while those cook, I'm going to go ahead and open up my tomato sauce. And before I do that, I always like to wash off the top. I just want to make sure that anything that has touched the top of this isn't going to go into the food that I'm serving. So I'm going to go ahead and do that.
Yes, and you know, while she's wiping off the top of her can, I also wanted to note, you know, oftentimes with pizza, I enjoy having a little bit of fresh garlic on there too. Oh, I'm just such a big fan of garlic, so that's another option that you could certainly add to this recipe. I think this recipe is a really great example of how recipes are really a guideline. They're a framework, so once you kind of get it down pat, you can really mix and match things and put your own flavor, and I mean literally your own flavor in it. And kind of do your own thing with it. So that's a great opportunity with this recipe right here.
Thank you for the inspiration. I just added some fresh garlic. All right, so my peppers are still sauteing and they're looking good, but they're not quite ready for me at the point where I want to add my mushrooms yet. So while they do that, I'm going to go ahead and open up my can of sauce. The really fun thing about this recipe is that you're going to add your spices right into the can. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of helps with a little bit of your cleanup. One less dish to clean up.
Yes. And when you're washing
always dishes,
every dish counts. So yeah. Those little tips like this.
In our house, we have the rule that she who cooks does not have to do dishes. So I cook and my husband does the dishes. So.
I like that. I love that.
All right. So going back to our recipe, we see that we need to have half a teaspoon of oregano and a half a teaspoon of basil. And I did sprinkle a little bit on the vegetables, but I'm going to go ahead and just put that right into the sauce.
Mm-hmm. And with these spices, is that one of the times you could maybe adjust the recipe to your liking as well? With the
Absolutely, yes. You know, some people might not care for basil or oregano, or maybe they want to add something else, but absolutely. And again, herbs are such a powerful flavor enhancer, and they give us some nutrients too that I think a lot of people don't think about.
Yeah.
All right, so see, I just added it right there in the pan. Before I mix that up, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to add my mushrooms. My peppers are looking quite lovely. Look at all those beautiful colors.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Even the flecks of green from the different herbs that you've already added already looks so good. One thing I did want to note though, while you are working with your mushrooms right now, you know, if you do have the opportunity and you're at the grocery store shopping, try to grab a low sodium option when it comes to the tomato sauce. You know, that can be really helpful if you're watching your sodium, and it's a great chance for you to flavor more with our herbs and spices like Margie is doing. You'll notice she's not really using a lot of salt today, you know? We're really getting that from, you know, we're gonna have a little bit of sodium coming in from that cheese. And, you know, with canned products, there's already an amount of sodium in there already for preservatives. So, you know, we've already got that coming into play. So she's definitely being mindful of that with this recipe, and just keep that in mind when you're seasoning your own pizzas.
Right, right. So many of our products that we are using have added salt. And so our mozzarella cheese is a little bit salty, but I really don't feel like this recipe needs salt.
Yeah.
So I've chosen not to add it. I am going to go ahead and take the liberty of adding just a handful of baby spinach, because why not, right?
Yeah, right. Why not? Exactly. We don't need a reason.
And it does cook down rather quickly. So it'll seem like you're adding a lot, but
that's a great way to sneak in more veg. Great idea. And, you know, Cooking Matters does have a really awesome tomato sauce recipe that I can actually put into the chat for you all. I can share that along if you were wanting to create your own tomato sauce for a pizza. I'll put that in the chat for you guys. But then also, if you know, wanted to use a quicker option, a canned option is always just fine. I normally do that, so.
All right, let me show you how beautiful these vegetables are.
Ooh, oh my goodness. And that spinach did cook quickly.
It did cook, it cooks very quickly. So I just put that in right at the end. And I'm gonna go ahead and take my English muffins out and see if they're sufficiently toasted. Sure they are. So you can even see by looking at them, they've got a little bit of nice brownness on the top. And that's really important so that our sauce doesn't soak in too much. All right.
Another
So we
quick
have-
question, Margie. Did
Yes.
You put anything on the English muffins before putting them in, or did you just put those in plain?
Boy, we've got some great questions today. I did not put anything on them at all. I just cut them and put them on just like that. You know, I would imagine you could put something on, but I don't think they need it, because we've got the oil that we cooked our vegetables in, and then we've got add the tomatoes last, I believe. Pepper. Yeah, so. Okay, so now I'm going to use hot pads because this is very hot, and I'm going to transfer. I'm just going to put this over here so that you can see from the view. And I'm just going to carefully just put the sauce on each muffin. And you know, I will tell you that I was a little worried that the sauce would be too thin for this, but it worked out great.
Oh.
Yeah. I would imagine also if you have leftover spaghetti sauce, or if you have leftover pizza sauce or some kind of sauce like that, that would work just fine in place of the tomato sauce.
That's a perfect tip.
Thank you. I'm all about using what we have in the refrigerator and not creating any kind of food waste.
I feel like with kids, I often have half a jar of sauce left, and this would be a perfect way to use it.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, I was also thinking this could work well if you wanted to try something different, but perhaps a like Alfredo with like spinach and mushrooms and that kind of situation. What are those pizzas called when they usually do it with an Alfredo? Is it I can't think of the name, but it's a specific kind of pizza, but you can build those kind of pizzas too if you wanted to do something a little bit fancier, perhaps for an event. If you have friends over, I mean, barbecue sauce kind of chicken situation, you can really do a lot. You can stray a little bit away from the stereotypical pizza, and you can really put your own flavor on it in that way. So just think about those things and get creative in your kitchen.
You know, another thing that I do in the summer when zucchini and eggplant are plentiful is instead of using the English muffin, I will just do it on an eggplant. So I make an eggplant pizza. And so if you have anybody in your family who needs to maybe not eat gluten or is, really watching the amount of bread that they're eating, that's a healthy option too.
Oh yeah,
So-
that makes a lot of sense.
I added my tomatoes now.
Mhm.
I didn't want them to cook down too much because they are going to go into the oven. So, all right, so there's those. Let's bring this back to your view here.
Perfect.
Now, what you can't see is that there's a little dog right here at my ankles just waiting for me to drop something.